Dr. Emilie, there's something I want to ask you about. I've noticed that with the student I mentor, that on occasion while we're playing games, he cheats. Okay? And then I've also noticed that sometimes when we're talking about family life or home life, he stretches the truth. I don't want to say lies, but he, you know what I mean. He stretches the truth. With both of those situations, Dr. Emilie, what do I do?
That's an interesting question, Dave, because it seems to come up frequently with the mentors who submit emails to myself and to our team at Winning at Home. It's difficult to know how to handle dishonesty with your student, but certainly I appreciate the high level of integrity that the mentors and directors have because they're asking that question. So I appreciate that they're trying to model truthfulness in those relationships. I think it's important to recognize that students' perceptions are often truth to them. It's important to look for the meaning behind the words because sometimes it reflects insecurity or a lack of safety, and it's not necessarily the words that are important, but the meaning behind the words. So pay attention to that. Another important thing to remember is that lying or dishonesty often comes out of a place of fear. If you even think back to the Garden of Eden, when Eve was dishonest with our Creator, that came out of a place of shame and fear. So sometimes helping kids recognize those emotions can be crucial to them making a change and making better choices in terms of truth-telling. Now, saying that, it's also incredibly important then, if they're operating out of a sense of fear, to build a relationship where safety is in place and security is in place, so that while you're working with a student, he can feel safe enough to be vulnerable or transparent, because without that safety, that transparency can never occur. So I definitely encourage that safety. How do you build that? With grace and consistency. And if you can exercise grace and give that student room and permission to be embellish things a little bit, that's okay. Exercise grace.
So I don't call him out on it right away or every time? I mean, should I highlight the fact that, hey, I know that isn't true, or should I just let it go? Right,
that's a good question. And especially during a game, sometimes our kids get very competitive and they feel like they need to win, so they change the rules. And my perception would be that early on in that game, make those observations and make a note to yourself and say, yes, I recognize that either my student may have a fragile self-esteem where they need to win, or maybe even they have a highly competitive spirit, and those are good things to know about your student. At the same time, if that pattern becomes a theme in your relationship where there's dishonesty or you feel like they're bending the rules, it's a good opportunity to teach a social skill. And depending on where that student is on that particular day and what that student needs, you can take the opportunity to challenge them and inquire, do you know the difference between something that's true and something that's false? Can we talk about that? Sometimes I even ask the question to students, if I told you the sky is purple, would you believe that that's true? And so often students will say to me, no, Miss Emilie, of course we know that it's blue. But it's a good way to test their perception and then have a conversation. So if you can tell the difference between truth and things that are false or fictitious, can we have a conversation about that? What you just told me about your mom, would you say that that's true? Or is that something that's pretend, it's make-believe? With that said, kids often love to pretend and play make-believe, and sometimes that's where the truth gets embellished. So it's okay to continue to nurture that in kids and help them be creative, at the same time challenging them to distinguish between reality and fantasy.
Okay, and you said something really critical there as far as depending on the day that your student is having. So I need to read the situation. Some days when he's struggling a little bit, it's probably time for me to throw more grace into it.
Absolutely.
And other days we can, we can leave the, hey, let's dig into this for another day when things are going better. Is that what you mean by that?
Absolutely. And imagine if your student has received 3 or 4 behavioral points in the morning in the classroom, he might feel quite deflated. So it might be a huge boost to that child on that particular day at that time to have a win on his side. And in that circumstance, of course, it's okay to even stack the deck in his favor so that he wins and he can walk away from that relationship with a smile on his face.
Well, I kind of feel like you stacked the deck for me on this and everybody else who's wondering the same question. So thanks, Dr. Emilie. I believe now I know what to do.
Thanks.
So, Dr. Emilie, I have an enjoyable mentoring session with the young guy that I mentor. We connect real well. We have some great conversations, some great fun. And then I drop him off at his classroom. I leave, I go in the parking lot, and my car won't start. Dr. Emilie, what do I do?
Dave, that's a really good question, and I would suggest that you call a mechanic
Okay.
because I have absolutely no idea.
Well, thanks, Dr. Emilie. Now I know what to do.